Hello and welcome back to Nostalgia Rewind, the series where I take a look back at some of the games I feel most nostalgic for and see how they hold up now. Today's game is Wii Sports Resort. Wii Sports Resort released in 2009, and is the sequel to the insanely popular Wii launch title Wii Sports. It sold over 33 million copies, and while that isn't as high as the insane 80 million of the original, it still makes it the third highest selling Wii game of all time, right behind Mario Kart Wii. This game is a big upgrade compared to its predecessor. Where the original Wii Sports only had 5 sports with some training mode minigames, Wii Sports Resort has a total of 12, with most of them having multiple different modes to choose from. Wii Sports Resort is designed to show off all the new capabilities of the Wii Motion Plus sensor, an add-on to the normal Wii remote that was more precise and allowed for better motion controls. Instead of swinging the remote wildly and hoping it works, now you actually have to pay attention to how you're moving the controller. This whole game has an island vacation theme this time around, with all the sports taking place somewhere on Woohoo Island. This isn't the first time this island has appeared in a Nintendo game, but it's never been the main star like it is here. To this day, Wii Sports Resort still has the most detailed and in-depth version of Woohoo Island, and it's really the game that cemented this island as one of the greatest video game locations of all time. If you can't tell, I absolutely love this game. I have so many fond memories of playing it with my friends and family, and I still play it pretty regularly to this day. I think this is basically the perfect Wii game. It uses motion controls better than any other game out there, it has a bright and vibrant visual style that still looks great today, it has surprisingly fantastic music, and most importantly, it's a whole lot of fun to play. But let's not waste any more time and dive right into the game itself. To start, I'll make a brand new me to play as so I can experience all the sports fresh without already being pro rank. So say hello to Hero 2.0. Now I'll be playing through all of the 12 sports available and all their different modes, going over the gameplay and giving my general thoughts and opinions on each. I'll play each sport for a decent amount of time, but I won't be getting all the stamps because some of them are pretty difficult. I'll be going through the sports in the order they're in on the main menu, so this isn't a ranking or anything. Now let's get into the first sport, swordplay. Swordplay is one of the best sports in this game. Its use of one-to-one motion controls lets you swing your sword exactly how you want to, so there's more skill and strategy involved if you want to be successful. There are 3 modes in this sport: Duel, Speed Slice, and Showdown. Duel has you battling it out one-on-one with a CPU opponent or another player. You fight on top of this raised platform and try to knock the other person off of it. You can swing in any direction and hold B to block. For the lower level Miis, you can pretty much just swing like crazy and you'll win. But later on you'll have to learn how to block effectively or you'll be in the water in no time. If you end up in a tie, the edges of the platform will sink down for one final round on this tiny blue circle where just one hit will knock you off. The motion controls are pretty accurate for the most part, but during the super intense matches it's pretty easy for the Wii Remote's calibration to mess up. I lost a couple of times where it didn't feel like my fault, but that didn't happen consistently. To me, this sport feels very similar to boxing in the original Wii Sports. Just like in boxing, the crowd watching you starts off pretty small, but as you rise through the ranks and face tougher opponents, there are more and more people in the crowd, which I love. The matches feel a lot more epic when the whole island comes out to watch you battle. Another similarity to boxing is that Matt is the champion of this sport, and beating him is pretty tough. This guy is no joke. He'll knock you into the water before you even have a chance to think about striking back. Just one of his hits will knock you back across half the platform. Once you finally manage to beat him, you'll unlock some nicer armor, and a purple sword which you can use if you hold 1 while the game loads. Overall, I really like this mode. It's lots of fun even though there were a few times when the motion controls didn't work quite right. Moving on, we have Speed Slice, where you have to cut the objects that drop in front of you in the right direction before your opponent does. This one is all about your reflexes and how fast you can react to what's on screen. There are all sorts of objects you'll have to slice through with everything from a loaf of bread to a diamond. This one requires some pretty precise motion controls, and it worked really well for me. It's super satisfying to slice through stuff right when they fall down, and the sound design is really good too. There was one time the timing was so close that Matt stopped to think about it for a while, which was funny. I also love when Matt throws the items super high into the air and looks up to see if they're ever coming down. That's all for this mode, so let's move on to possibly the best part of this entire game, Swordplay Showdown. Showdown is a single player mode where you fight through waves of Miis around various locations on Woohoo Island. There are no words to describe how fun it is to smack around tons of Miis in this mode. It uses the motion controls perfectly, where there are gaps between waves of Miis so the remote always has time to recalibrate and work accurately. In the duel mode, if you try to stop and let the remote catch up, you'll suffer for it. But in Showdown, those necessary breaks are worked right into the gameplay naturally. This was probably my most played mode as a kid, because slicing through Miis is so much fun and never gets old. I love putting together creative combos and interesting ways of attacking. You get 3 hearts on each level, and once the levels start getting harder, you'll have to block pretty regularly. Luckily, it's pretty easy to tell where the Miis are going to strike. There are 10 stages to fight through, with each getting more difficult as you progress. Then once you beat the final level in the volcano, you unlock the reverse versions of all 10 levels, which are even harder. You can also unlock the purple sword in this mode if you beat all 20 levels. And that's all the modes in Swordplay. This sport has a ton of content, probably the most out of all of them. Now let's move on to the next sport. Wakeboarding is one of the most simple and straightforward sports, with only one mode and a few difficulty levels. You hold the remote horizontally and tilt left and right to move, and shake once you reach a wave to pull off tricks. The hardest part of wakeboarding is landing right without falling in the water. The tricks build off each other in intensity, so eventually you'll be flying through the air doing insane stunts. The higher difficulties have more objects to avoid, making things harder, and if you end up on the wrong side of one of these poles, you'll be absolutely destroyed. The objective is simply to land as many tricks as possible to build up a higher score. Despite how simple it is, I've always really liked this sport. The gameplay loop of jumping and landing tricks is really fun and replayable, and I love riding around in the water surrounding Woohoo Island. The sense of speed is also really great. You really feel like you're flying across the water when you land a jump. The announcer is honestly a big reason why this sport is so fun, as he constantly compliments your skills very enthusiastically.
Wow! Great air! Whoa! Nice jump! Yeah!
This sport has great sound design and visual feedback to go along with the motion controls. That's about all there is to talk about with wakeboarding, so let's keep going with the next sport. Frisbee has 2 main modes, Frisbee Dog and Frisbee Golf. Frisbee Dog is easily the better mode in my opinion, where you throw the frisbee at a target for your dog to catch. The frisbee motion controls are pretty hard to get used to, and I never feel like I've mastered them completely. I'll always have a couple throws that just fail horribly, and then my dog looks very annoyed. Later on, some big balloons are added in, adding some more challenge if you try and pop them. I love how the Miis in the background absolutely freak out if you pull off a perfect jumping catch. I'm not super great at this sport, but it's still really fun and it's always enjoyable to interact with this little dog. Then there's Frisbee Golf, which I'm not a huge fan of. It's exactly what it sounds like. You play golf, but with a frisbee instead of a golf club. As I previously mentioned, the frisbee controls aren't super precise, so it can be pretty frustrating when you mess up and ruin your entire run. Plus, all the courses are the exact same as the resort courses in golf, so whenever I'm playing this mode, I just wish I was playing normal golf instead. Frisbee Dog is fun because it's unique, but Frisbee Golf just feels like a worse version of golf. I don't hate this mode, there is some fun to be had here. When you pull off a nice throw and the frisbee glides cleanly through the air, it feels pretty great. But overall, Frisbee Golf isn't anything too special for me. Archery is another one of my favorite sports. Here you have to take your time and aim precisely to hit the target and get a high score. This is one of the sports that requires the nunchuck, so you can pull it back and pretend like it's a bow. This motion control layout feels great, and it's really satisfying to use. I've always loved how the Z button feels on the nunchuck, and using it to release the arrow feels really good. You'll have to take into account the direction of the wind like in golf, and curve your shot accordingly. The higher difficulties include moving the target right and left, adding boards of wood you have to dodge, and more intense winds with farther distances. By the last stage on the highest difficulty, it becomes hard to even hit the target at all. Another really great part of archery is the secret hidden targets in each stage, where off in the background there are weird objects you can try and hit to get 10 points. These hidden targets are super hard to hit, but they're really fun to try and master. Seeing the arrow flying through the air for a long time and finally hitting that watermelon is so awesome. This is a great example of why I love this game so much. They didn't have to include these hidden objects in archery, but they went the extra mile to give this game more personality and charm. I could play archery for hours. For me, it's one of the most replayable sports. I'm usually not into high score chasing, but in archery I'm always trying to beat my record. That's another amazing sport, and we've only just started. Basketball is up there alongside swordplay as one of the best sports in this game. The motion controls are used just perfectly and the gameplay is tons of fun. There are two modes, 3-point contest and pickup game. The 3-point contest has you shooting tons of threes trying to make as many as possible. You press B to pick up the ball, then move the remote upwards to make a shooting motion to shoot the ball. It's so much fun to shoot and making shots feels amazing. I love the visuals of this mode. It takes place at night and when you make a shot, fireworks go off in the distance. It's also a great way to practice for a pickup game, although it's a lot easier to make threes here than it is in that mode. The 3-point contest is like archery where I love replaying it over and over trying to beat my high score. Then there's the main attraction, the 3v3 pickup game mode. While on offense, you can pass to your teammates and dribble by shaking the Wii remote. Then when you want to take your shot, you press B and enter this countdown scene where you have to jump and shoot before time runs out. The defender can jump and try and block your shot, so you have to be careful with the timing. And when you're on defense, you can swing the remote to try and steal the ball, but failing to do so will make you fall on your face, leaving the hoop wide open for your opponents. And of course, you can also try and jump to block the other team's shots, which tests your reflexes and patience. You don't control where the Miis on your team move directly, but you can dribble to move closer to the hoop. It's all about choosing the best time to pass the ball so you can take the shot you want. There are 3 different ways to score points. A normal 2-point shot, a 3-point shot from anywhere behind the 3-point line, and if you manage to get right under the hoop, you can jump up and dunk the ball super dramatically. I've found that the best way to get points is to take lots of easy 2-point shots, instead of always trying to go for threes since they're pretty hard to make. On lower levels, you can just wait for the defender to jump and then shoot after that, but once you start facing harder opponents, they won't always jump, so it becomes a guessing game when to take your shot. And later on, the CPUs will basically make any shot you don't block, so you really have to get good at blocking or stealing the ball. Tommy is the champion of basketball, and beating him is pretty hard. Him and his teammates jump higher than you can, which seems unfair, but whatever. Tommy just drains threes like it's nothing, but eventually I managed to beat him. There sadly isn't a cool reward like there is in swordplay though. But you can play a pickup game at night by holding 2 before the game starts. There's a lot of strategy involved in this sport, and it definitely has some of the most in-depth mechanics in the game. This was another one of my most played sports as a kid, and it totally still holds up today. The matches have a timer of 3 minutes, which is the perfect amount of time to make the games feel important, but not overstay their welcome. Matches can get pretty intense and have tons of amazing moments. The pickup game mode in basketball is incredible, and it's one of the best parts about this game. Table tennis acts as a replacement for normal tennis, with way more accurate controls this time around. The 2 modes available include Match and Return Challenge. A table tennis match has you playing against a computer or another player to try and get 6 points first, but you can also play an 11-point game if you hold 2 during the loading screen. The motion controls feel so natural in this sport. Controlling the paddle with the Wii remote feels super responsive. You actually have to aim and hit the ping pong ball in certain directions if you want to win, so there's a lot more skill required than just shaking the controller. If your opponent hits the ball high into the air, then you can send it flying back in a super strike that's really satisfying to pull off. If you get a really long back and forth going, the sounds of the crowd drown out and you can only hear the hits of the ping pong ball, making things even more stressful. Like the other sports, you gradually face tougher and tougher Miis, and eventually you'll be sending the ball back and forth at very high speeds. Lucia is the champion of table tennis, and beating her will take a lot of practice and patience. I wish I could say I beat her, but this match proved to be too tough for me despite my best efforts. If you can defeat Lucia though, you can play using a shoe as a paddle by holding 1 before the game starts. Enjoy this image of it since I can't beat Lucia myself. Then there's the return challenge, which is pretty simple. You just try and return as many balls as possible while hitting some soda cans for extra points along the way. I still really love tennis from the first Wii Sports, but table tennis is a more than worthy follow-up. Golf returns again, but it's even better now. You can choose from either the classic courses from the first game or the brand new resort courses, with 3 special unlockable courses too. The gameplay of golf is as great as ever, with a more relaxed atmosphere putting a greater emphasis on planning out your shots carefully and taking your time. The Wii Motion Plus also allows for more control options, like being able to curve your shot and resetting your golf club's position. Overall, the swing control feels a lot better too. I'll always love the classic courses, but the new resort courses are a big improvement. Since they're located on Wedge Island, there's more interesting scenery and the course layouts are better designed too. Some of the special courses are just plain mean though. I mean, just look at all these hills. I love the slow strategy involved in golf, where sometimes you'll mess up a shot and will have to change your approach to try and avoid any extra points. The announcer is amazing as usual, complimenting your great shots.
Great shot!
While most of the other sports in this game are pretty intense, it's always nice to chill out with a relaxing game of golf. The audio is also amazing. You can hear all the sounds of the natural world around you, like birds tweeting and the wind blowing through the trees. Hitting the golf ball far into the distance sounds great too. Golf is probably one of the most iconic sports in all of Wii Sports history, and it's best experienced in this game. Bowling is the last returning sport, and once again it's simply an improved version of what already existed. The three modes are a standard game, 100-pin game, and spin control. The gameplay isn't as noticeably improved as golf was, but the Wii Motion Plus allows for more precise throws. The crowd freaks out like usual if you throw the ball backwards, and getting a strike feels just as great as it should. The building around you is much more detailed now, and I also like the new animation for the Miis where they tilt their leg to the side after throwing the ball. The replayability is one of the best parts about this sport. It's always fun to go back and try and beat your own record. I never managed to bowl a perfect game, but I did get to pro status to unlock the star bowling ball. You can also change the color of your bowling ball by holding down different directions on the D-pad as the game loads. Wii Sports Resort doesn't have a training mode like the original, but luckily they still included the 100-pin bowling game. And yes, the secret strike you can get by rolling the ball on the barrier is still possible, although holy crap is it difficult to pull off. Don't expect to consistently use this trick as it took me like 50 tries just to get this gameplay. If you play this mode normally, it's tons of fun to knock over so many pins at once. Then there's spin control, which adds in some extra barriers to teach you how to curve your shot accurately. This is a nice mode to help keep the bowling gameplay fresh if you get tired of the standard game. Just like golf, this game offers the definitive way to play Wii Sports bowling. Power Cruising has you cruising across the water in a jet ski while trying to get through timed checkpoints along the way. There's the slalom course mode and a versus mode, but my favorite part of this sport is the free cruise option that lets you explore the waters around Wuhu Island freely. You can pop these giant pink balloons to increase the time limit on this mode, and the further you get away from the island, the bigger the waves get, leading to some pretty crazy jumps you can pull off. I absolutely love exploring Wuhu Island in an open world format, so this is tons of fun, even if it's limited to the ocean waters, since the river under the Red Iron Bridge is blocked off. The jet ski moves a little slowly when you're trying to get around the island, but it's still a great time. Anyways, the main content of this sport is the slalom courses, where there's 6 courses to choose from. These courses can be really fun, but the strange control layout of the power ski can be hard to control when trying to turn back and forth between checkpoints. You can twist the Wii Remote to get a speed boost, but you have to time it right so you don't go flying past a checkpoint. There are these small circles you can go through to earn double points, but you have to go right through the middle or you'll bounce off of it. The later courses have floating checkpoints that you fly through after jumping on a big wave, which is awesome. Probably my favorite courses are the ones that go right next to the Queen Peach and Wuhu Town, and this one that goes into the cavern ruins beneath Wuhu Island. The versus mode just has you playing against another player on the same courses, this time racing against each other instead of the clock. Power cruising can be really fun, but the controls are pretty unreliable, and can be really hard to get used to sometimes. It's still a great sport, but not quite as perfect as the other ones. Canoeing has 2 main modes, Speed Challenge and Versus. Similar to Power Cruising, there's a free roam option where you can paddle around Duckling Lake freely, but sadly canoeing has even worse motion controls than Power Cruising. You move the Wii Remote like it's a paddle, which sounds simple enough, but in practice it's really frustrating and clunky. I managed to get the hang of it after a while, but it never felt good to control. There are 10 lost ducklings around the lake you can gather and return to their mother, which is a fun little optional thing. But it annoys me that out of all of the sports that have free roam modes, canoeing is the one that doesn't have a time limit. Power Cruising, time limit. Island Flyover, time limit. But of course canoeing lets you explore for as long as you want for some reason. Whatever, let's just move on to the Speed Challenge. Trying to paddle as fast as possible just makes the motion controls even worse, and in no time you'll be flailing around outside the course boundaries trying desperately to get back in time.
This is a nightmare!
Bad controls and panic are not a great mix, making this mode the worst in the whole game. And Versus mode is just the speed challenge but with extra checkpoints where you race against another player. If you can somehow manage to master the canoeing controls, then it's possible to enjoy this sport, but it's definitely the weakest compared to the other 11 sports in this game. Cycling has you racing on various roads around Wuhu Island, trying to get to first place. There's a road race and versus mode, and both are pretty similar. There's also a practice mode that is semi-open world, but the roads are so limited that it isn't that fun to explore. There are 6 stages to choose from, and you can select a 1, 3, or 6 stage race. During a 3 or 6 stage race, each stage is presented as a different day, with your place transferring over to each new race. This makes it feel like you're taking part in a big cycling marathon, which is awesome. Going from 100th place all the way to first over 6 different days feels amazing. You shake the Wii Remote and nunchuck up and down to pedal, but you have to be careful and watch your stamina so you don't run out of breath. The stages are full of obstacles too, like bananas on the road that will make your tires super slippery, rocks you have to avoid, and the wind will blow you right off the side of a cliff. After a very long 6-stage race, I finally got into first place, only to hit a banana at the last second and lose it all. Easily one of my favorite parts about this sport is the music that dynamically changes depending on what's happening in the race. The music slows down when you're close to running out of breath, and during the final stretch it gets super motivational and intense to help push you to the end. And the versus mode is pretty much the same thing, only with another player. Pedaling past Miis and racing to the finish line never gets old. Air Sports is the final sport of this game, and it's also one of the very best. The 3 modes include skydiving, island flyover, and dogfight. Skydiving is great mainly because of the impressive visuals. Jumping out of a plane high above Wuhu Island and falling through the sky looks and sounds incredible. The main goal is to link up with other skydivers and get your picture taken, which rewards you with points. And if you manage to link up with 5 other divers, you'll get an extra picture taken too. Then at the end, all the other Miis form up into big circles for you to dive through, then there's one last big group picture, and everyone pulls out their parachutes. Skydiving also serves as the intro to Wii Sports Resort, showing the title on top of your Mii's parachute. This is one of my favorite video game openings of all time, and it's the perfect way to introduce you to Wuhu Island. Next up is Island Flyover, which is another one of my favorite modes in the whole game. Remember how I said I enjoyed the free cruise mode in Power Cruising? Well, Island Flyover is an entire mode dedicated to exploring Wuhu Island, and this time you take control of a plane and can go wherever you want. You tilt the Wii Remote to control the plane, and you can push forward to get a speed boost. The controls are simple yet effective. Controlling the plane is surprisingly intuitive and fun. All around the island are these eye points, which are full of interesting information about the locations of Wuhu Island. I love reading all the world-building little facts about this place, and discovering interesting locations is so much fun. Collecting a certain amount of eye points will earn you rewards, including balloons for you to shoot, different times of day like sunset and night, a double blaster, lights around the island at night, a 2-seater plane, your Mii's face on the side of the whale shark, and once you collect every single eye point, you get your very own vacation home on one of the mini islands. And if you don't like how crowded the island looks with balloons and eye points everywhere, you can hold 2 as the game loads to turn off everything and explore Wuhu Island without any distractions. Quick side note, I love how the passenger Miis wave their arms in the air when you go upside down, although I'm not sure if it's because they're having fun or if they're terrified. There's a ton of content in this mode, and I'll never get tired of just flying around the island taking in the sights. There are tons of fun locations you can try and fly through, like going into the volcano, the caves below the waterfall, and the cavern ruins near the ocean. There are other planes flying around in the sky too, including Miguel's guide plane, which you can find by setting off a flare. There are boats cruising around the waters, and you can even spot a whale coming to the surface if you're lucky. You can also fly all the way over to Wedge Island and get some eye points over there too. All these details make Wuhu Island feel like a real world that people live in, and exploring it is just a joy. The only downside to Island Flyover is the 5-minute time limit, which there is no way to get rid of. I understand why it's there, to make collecting eye points more challenging, but I think once you collect all of them, the time limit should go away. You know this is a great sport when all I want to do is spend more time in this mode. I could go on forever about Island Flyover, so let's move on to Dogfight, which is probably the best multiplayer co-op mode in this game. In a dogfight, you have a giant balloon behind you, and your objective is to shoot the other player's balloon as much as possible to win. As I mentioned before, controlling your plane is just amazing, so the dogfight mode is a blast. Air Sports is a very fun and unique sport. Skydiving and dogfight are great, but it's Island Flyover that makes it one of the best sports in this game. And we've finally come to the end. That was all the sports included in Wii Sports Resort. I tried my best to cover most of the content this game has to offer, but be sure to let me know if I missed anything. I love this game so much. Not only do I have an intense nostalgic connection to it, but it still holds up to this day. I'll always come back to Wuhu Island to play some sports, and I highly recommend that you do the same. And now that I've shared all my thoughts on Wii Sports Resort, I want to hear yours. What are some of your favorite sports or memories you have from this game? Let me know down in the comments. I hope you enjoyed this trip down memory lane, and if you enjoyed the video, be sure to subscribe. This video was a ton of fun to put together, and I'm honestly a little sad that it's over now. Of course I'll still play this game in the future, but it was so much fun to have a reason to dive back into it again. And that's a wrap on Wii Sports Resort. Thanks for watching guys, and I'll see ya in the next one.